Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope you're all doing great. Hope you're having a good weekend. Today, we got an account takeover. I'm going to bring you guys along because I think this account is in a very relatable spot. It's a pretty low spend or even free-to-play account. The champions aren't massive as far as the options, and I think if you're somebody looking to specifically build a seer team for Dragon Stage 24 and Icegolem Stage 24 to do it in a pretty fast time. Right now, his 24 is 4 minutes and 54 seconds. I don't think it's been optimized, obviously. I think he could definitely do a lot better. And then stage 24 on Dragon is 2 minutes and 9, which is not a terrible time, especially considering it probably wasn't with a seer team. Obviously, this team is probably not the one that was doing it fast, but it could be. So today, we're going to jump in here and we're going to build a team to do stage 24 of Dragon and stage 24 of Icegolem. It's going to be a seer team. He recently pulled seer. Right now, she's not really in much gear at all. He hasn't spent the time to actually gear her. So we're going to gear her, get her in a good spot, get the team put together. But the thing I wanted to share with you guys, and the reason why I think this is going to be such a good showcase and such a good takeover in general, is because we're missing a lot of the typical, I guess, meta seer wave clear team. So a lot of times with seer, you'll see champions like Lydia, who brings, well, decreased defense and weaken AoE, plus 2 buffs, right? So Lydia, amazing champion. I think it's 2 buffs, but we're not quite finished with Faction Wars yet, okay? We got a little ways to go. Once we get Lydia, absolutely amazing. But for a seer team, she's amazing. She literally brings exactly what you want. But unfortunately, when you don't have Lydia, you can't really do anything very similar unless you have Dracomorph. But I think this account has a few champions that are going to work pretty well. You guys can let me know what you think. If you were building a seer team, what champions would you throw in there alongside seer? So obviously we got seer, of course, right? You need her. Renegade, there is no Kymar on this account, which is something very interesting. So a lot of times, same thing, Yumiko's, Kymar's, Renegade, 3 reset champions. You kind of need those for a seer team, of course. Basically clear the first wave, reset, clear the second wave, and then when you get to the boss, you're good to go. So we do have a Renegade. There's no Kymar, no Yumiko. So we have seer plus Renegade, and now we need 3 other champions. So I'll go ahead and throw these into the team presets. We'll scroll down here. This should work for both dungeons, to be honest. So seer will be in the lead for now, and then we'll throw in Renegade. I'm going to do these presets, and then we'll actually go in and start gearing the champions and everything like that. But I'll throw in the setup so that we know what we're working with. So we have seer and Renegade, and now we need a champion who's going to provide a lot of buffs. We need some poisons, and we need decreased defense and things like that. So decreased defense, weaken is going to be super, super important. I was looking through the account, and he does have a champion who's going to be very, very good for this role. So I'll scroll through here. You guys maybe will see him already. Tomb Lord. Now I forget what his aura is. I don't actually have Tomb Lord on my account, unfortunately. So I do need to check his aura because he may have a better aura. Okay, it's in the Doom Tower only. So Seer is in all dungeons or in all battles, I believe. But it's not really going to do much because it's resistance. So it's going to work, but it's not really going to do much. So we have Seer, Renegade, Tomb Lord. Tomb Lord is going to bring the decreased defense from his A3 ability, decreases the turn meter of all enemies with less than 50% HP by 100%, has an 80% chance of placing 50% decreased attack on all enemies for 2 turns. Also, 80% chance of placing 60% decreased defense debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, which is exactly what we need. Also, this champion is built with 100% crit rate, so he is going to be able to land all of his extra poisons because he's already using Tomb Lord. When I do these takeovers, I prefer not to, waste all the person's resources. You guys may have noticed this account doesn't have a ton of excess resources. Fairly a decent spot in the silver, not great. Got to be careful with the upgrades. And then the gems, we're not gonna be wasting stuff. Okay, so 2 more for the decreased defense. Next champion, we're gonna need some good buffs. And we're going to need somebody to help work down the dragon and the waves. So the level 60 options we have, fairly limited, but very, very, very good level 60s. So I think Ninja is going to be an amazing champion. Ninja brings a few things. He brings some wave control if we need it with that A3 ability in the freeze. He's fully booked. He also brings this A2 ability that's going to do the burn. That's going to help us get through the dragon quicker. Now, if you don't have Ninja, this team could work very, very well with a champion like Dark Kale, because Dark Kale is also going to be strong affinity on stage 24 of Icegolem and Dragon. So as far as speeding up the runs, Dark Kale is going to be great. May actually be It'd be about the same as Ninja, to be honest, I'd say. Maybe quicker. Just depends. I mean, we have Tomb Lord, so Dark Kael actually would be very, very good. I don't think he has Dark Kael on this account. He does have Archmage, which is actually the next champion we're going to be using, is Archmage, because Archmage is 1, strong affinity, 2, brings a stun, which could be very useful for the waves. I kind of wish we had the books. I think he said we could book this champion. I'm going to see how many epic books he has. I don't really want to do it with CVC being so close. If the run's not 100% consistent and like a little bit RNG, I would definitely rather him save the books for CVC. You got 10 books, so we'll save the books. But what I was saying about Dark Kael is Dark Kael would be another amazing option for this team. Unfortunately, we don't quite have him yet. Do we have Akoth the Seared? So we do have Akoth. So I think Dark Kael's after Akoth, right? I think that's the case. Let's see. We may have him get him pretty close. No, Rian the Conjurer, and then Dark Kael. Okay, so he's working towards Dark Kael. Perfect. So if we got Dark Kael, could possibly be swapped in for Ninja. Now back to the actual dungeon setup. Let me go in here and actually do the presets. Now, since we don't have decreased defense plus weaken, I think what we're going to have to do is open with the A2 ability, then prioritize the A3. So we're going to open with the weaken and the increased crit rate. So we're going to have that buff. The A3 ability is going to be the first one we actually use when we come around. The second wave is going to be the exact same thing. Open with and then prioritize the A3. And then on the dragon, we're just prioritize the A3. Doesn't really matter because it's probably going to die pretty quickly. Now for Renegade, the first wave, we just don't use either one of these abilities. We don't really need to use them. It's going to be perfectly fine. The second wave, we need to prioritize using that A3 and just don't use the Lash Out. And then round 3, she can use whatever. Tomb Lord, we've got to be mindful about this. So I want to make sure the decreased defense is still up when Seer gets around to do her nuke. It should be because it's for 2 turns, so they shouldn't get 2 turns before Seer gets 2 turns. So we'll just prioritize this on both waves and then not use Death Burst on wave 2 because I want to make sure this is ready to be used on the dragon as soon as we get there. So number 1 priority. And then the Blight on Icegolem, this could be good. On dragon, it's not going to do much, but we'll just leave it as it is. So next champion is going to be Ninja and Archmage. These 2 champions are going to be very important because these champions are going to give us time to actually get Seer back around to her ability. Now, I prefer not to use Ninja to do this because Ninja's going to reduce the damage that Seer deals, but if he does the Cyan Slash or the Freeze very first thing, then they should all get a turn before Seer gets her second turn. So I'll open with the A3 ability on Ninja. On Archmage, I got to make sure his buffs won't go out before he gets back around. 4 turn duration on the buffs, unfortunately, I may have to try to drop a book into that. Unfortunate, but we may have to do that depending on how we can get stuff working. Actually, no, I take that back. We should be fine without having it booked. We'll do the prioritize that first turn. We'll leave this open because he can use that after the first turn. And then second wave, we'll prioritize that as well. So this should be good. Definitely should be perfectly fine. Ninja, second wave, prioritize that as well. So basically what should happen is everybody does the buffs, Ninja CCs, the enemy takes a turn, and then we do our damage the next turn after that. So hopefully this all works out the way I'm thinking it does. Typically, I jump in, do the presets, and then I go back and see how the run actually works. So now I'm going to go in here and make sure the turn orders are correct. I kind of want Renegade to be the fastest on the team, I think, because she is going to need to reset as soon as we go into the Dragon Wave, because Ninja's going to need to do his A3 ability as soon as possible. Technically, I could get Archmage to do his stun, but it may not be super consistent because he's not fully booked yet. So I need to make sure Renegade's not on Spider, which I bet she is. She is on the Spider team. So with this Spider team, though, I'm not for sure if boosting her speed a little bit is going to make a huge difference. Let's see. 205, 214. If it does, well, she's already opening with this ability. So I don't think her being 215 is going to make much of a difference. She'll just be first. Everybody still gets a turn. So it should be fine. I'll boost her up. We'll see how it works. Obviously, we're not going to mess up other teams going into this. So I'm going to jump in here, re-gear all these champions, and I'll be right back with the full rebuild of all these champions. But before we do that, let me show you what current stats we're looking at on everybody in case you're curious. So 154 speed on Seer. She needs to be complete redone. Renegade, slight changes, not very much. Tomb Lord is not really going to be changed because he's in a pretty good spot. We just need to make sure Seer is a little bit slower than him. Ninja is in a pretty good spot as well. Seer doesn't really have to be speed tuned to Ninja necessarily because she's using her A2 first, and Ninja doesn't really do anything related to Seer. Archmage is going to be regeared and put to a correct speed. So I'm going to get to work on this, and I'll see you guys in just a minute. All right, so the gearing and everything is now finished. I know that was just a split second for you all, but that was about 4 hours for me because Icegolem is not difficult necessarily, but getting it to be consistent is a pain, especially with Ninja being the main damage dealer. He's strong affinity on Icegolem stage 24, but he's a little bit squishy. So let me show you guys the run. Remember, before we did this whole adjustment stuff, the run was like 4 minutes, 5 minutes best, obviously not being farmed whatsoever. Icegolem is a pretty slow dungeon a lot of times, and if it's not slow, you run into the issue of risking the big slam from the Icegolem, and it's a very risky dungeon. But once you have it going and going well, you can definitely have a pretty consistent team. Though of Icegolem, Fire Knight, and Dragon, I'd say Icegolem and Fire Knight are the two dungeons where the most RNG is involved, because on the Icegolem, you risk hitting the big guy and breaking through those thresholds where he does a big slam, and the run's basically over. With Fire Knight, you run the risk of getting resisted and then your team getting wiped from one hit from the Fire Knight if your team's pretty weak. But here, we have Tomb Lord placed in decreased attack and decreased defense on the actual boss, so it's going to reduce our chances of getting killed a little bit. We also have Ninja built in high resistance, good accuracy, 3 pieces of immortal gear. I'll show you guys all the builds after we finish this, but he's very tanky. That's going to be good for Icegolem as well as Dragon, because if something happens and Tomb Lord dies, which he does die here pretty often, then Ninja's going to be able to basically handle the boss by himself. Now, this run's not necessarily going to be 100%. I do think once this Archmage is taken to level 60, a little bit more survivable, he'll be able to survive that first hit from the Icegolem and actually be able to help us go throughout the fight and not actually die. So right now, it's looking pretty good. It's probably going to be like 90-95% consistent. I do imagine there's going to be some fails because sometimes the Icegolem hits pretty hard and it will kill Tomb Lord. I've seen it happen, but I've made some adjustments and actually haven't seen a fail since then. But I'm not going to say this is 100% successful, but it's very, very close. Like I said, with the one change to Archmage, I think it's going to be perfectly fine. So here's the Ninja build. Ninja is in 3-piece immortal gear. Good HP, very, very important. If you're running Immortal or Regeneration, very important to have good HP, but you can't neglect defense whatsoever. You need some good defense as well. 210 speed, I would rather this be higher. So anytime we can get higher speed, definitely going to be worth it. As far as crit rate and crit damage, don't care about them. Don't need crit rate or crit damage for this. Actually, for Icegolem, you rather not have crit rate because the bigger hits from your A1, A2, A3 abilities can proc that big slam from the Icegolem. As far as resistance, 328 is going to be perfect. We should resist all of those heal reductions, decreased accuracy, as well as the decreased defense from the Icegolem and the minions. So perfect there. Accuracy, 220. I'd rather like 225, but we're placing our debuffs very, very well. As far as the skills, all fully booked. Masteries, I did have to switch them because we had War Master before, and the War Master procs on the Icegolem can run you the risk of actually getting that big slam. The entire theme of this is avoiding that big slam and being strategic about it. So there's Ninja. These builds of all these champions are going to be the exact same for Dragon stage 24 as well. Tomb Lord, he does have Giant Slayer, which isn't necessarily ideal because, like I mentioned, Giant Slayer can proc the Icegolem's big hits, but Tomb Lord's not going super fast, so he doesn't actually hit the Icegolem that frequently. Though it does happen, runs the risk of actually getting a big slam. But either way, right now he has good HP, good defense, okay speed. We need 100% crit rate for that A3 ability, the A2 ability to place a bunch of poisons. So good crit rate. Don't really care about crit damage on him. We don't really have the luxury of putting tons of stats into this champion. And then accuracy, we have 226. Shooting for that at least 225 mark, and we're good to go. Now for Tomb Lord, I actually had to replace the accuracy banner for HP, which made it pretty difficult to find good pieces up here because the regeneration option currently is pretty small in this account. But you really only need 1, maybe 2 good regeneration sets on your account to make these things work, okay? So like solo champion, stuff like that, to work, you really only need like 2 sets. Now, obviously, if you get more sets, it's gonna be better, but you can make do with not top tier, but pretty mediocre regeneration stuff. Obviously, a ton of room to grow from here. Getting HP percentage or even defense percentage gloves would be massive. Getting crit rate stats from these other places. I mean, he needs 100% crit rate, so you do gotta be mindful about that. He's at 111 right now, so that is what it is. Now, as far as the books, of course, fully booked there. Masteries, Giant Slayer, it does help us speed up on Dragon. I'll go ahead and X out of that so you guys can see here. Next champion is Seer. So Seer, before this, was actually not really built at all. Very new pool of a champion, so he hadn't put time into building her, but now she has 277% crit damage in Savage Gear, flawless execution, because it's more consistent compared to Helm Smasher. So we have good speed, according to our buffs and debuff champions, good accuracy, great crit damage, everything's fully booked. Masteries are looking like this, and I do really like this setup. This is a setup I use on my Seer on my account as well. Next champion, Mage Helmet. So he is here right now to bring extra buffs with that shield set. Very, very good. You'll also notice any champion who could have Blood Shield does have Blood Shield. So we do have a few Blood Shields throughout for a little extra buffs throughout the actual runs. More buffs means more damage from Seer, but here we go, Mage Helmet in a shield set, good accuracy, 100% crit rate. So crit rate is needed for Archmage, attacks one enemy, also attacks all other enemies if the first attack is critical. So very, very important to have 100% crit rate on your Archmage. Once he's fully booked, taken to level 60, finished with his Masteries, he's gonna do a lot better and be a lot more sustainable. Now, as far as Masteries, I don't think War Master or Giant Slayer is gonna be the ideal route for him, simply because it's gonna make him do more damage on the Icegolem, risking those big slams. Now, as far as Renegade, not really much changed. Just make sure she's in tune with the rest of the team. So that was Icegolem. Let me show you guys the presets in case you're wanting to build this Icegolem team. So one last time, I'll show you guys the presets of Icegolem, stage 24, using this team. Let me hide my webcam real quick. So Seer, round 1, round 2, round 3. Renegade, round 1, round 2, round 3. Mage Helmet, round 1, round 2, round 3. Tomb Lord, round 1, round 2, and round 3. Ninja, round 1, round 2, and round 3. So these presets are not necessarily what you have to use to make this team work. These are what I've had to use for this particular account because the gearing of the champs wasn't at a high enough level to give me the luxury of making the presets a little more free-flowing, I guess. So the next one is Dragon's Lair. So Dragon's Lair stage 24, the exact same team, the exact same build, but different presets. So let's go ahead and talk about these presets real quick. Seer, round 1, round 2, and round 3. We have Renegade on round 1, round 2, and round 3. Tomb Lord, round 1, round 2, and round 3. We have Ninja, round 1, round 2, and round 3. You'll notice the biggest difference is he's prioritizing Hellburn and not using it on that one. Hellburn is very, very important on the Dragon. Mage Helmet, round 1, round 2, and round 3. So the builds are going to be very similar. The biggest difference between the Dragon and the Icegolem is that Seer shouldn't be using the Karma Burn on the round 3. So if she does survive, which she shouldn't on Icegolem, but make sure she doesn't use Karma Burn because that could mess you up. Whereas on Dragon, using Karma Burn is very, very important because it's going to help the run go a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and show this team. So this team is going to be pretty quick. I prefer to run Lydia or Ghostborn, but when you don't have that option, you need to go with any other decreased defense champion you have. Now, Tomb Lord's an amazing option because he brings a decreased defense, but he also brings a bunch of poisons, decreased attack for Icegolem. Very, very good kit overall, plus decreased speed for Fire Knife, triple hit on the A1. So many good areas and so many good parts of his kit. But if you don't have Tomb Lord, bring a decreased defense champion, bring a War Maiden, bring whatever decreased defense champion you can bring. And then in the ninja spot, you should be able to use a lot of different champions. Now, in this case, obviously, if you don't bring Tomb Lord, you're going to have to change it to Ninja, different stuff. But you can definitely look for a Poison champion, maybe a Burn champion, possibly Akoth. Ninja works out very well in the Icegolem specifically because of that freeze, keeping those side people locked down. But champions like Venomage, champions like Dark Kale, champions like Akoth could also possibly work well if you have the gear to make it work. This account, I'm not for sure if they'd be able to because you probably need higher level regeneration plus immortal gear. But right now, he's doing great. I mean, Ninja's definitely going to be able to solo the boss here if it came down to that. If everybody died, Ninja will do fine. He has three sets of immortal gear plus high resistance. He's resisting everything. He's not in any danger whatsoever of dying. The run earlier we had, the best time was 57 seconds. I think we have 60 FPS going on right now. I don't think it's on unlimited. Either way, our best time was 57 seconds. The previous best was 2 minutes. So last but not least is the Fire Knight team. So Fire Knight stage 24 wasn't complete, so we went ahead and completed that. 6 minutes and 57 seconds is very, very slow, but I used this team. No, I did not use this team. I used some random team with like Helicath and Silva Drakes, Coldheart, Tomb Lord, and Allure, I think, something like that. That maybe more champions was actually allowed, but either way, I just grinded through it, got through stage 24, and now we're doing stage 25. Now, stage 25 of Fire Knight is, this one actually works out pretty well. We do have Allure instead of Ninja in the team. That's really the only difference. But Fire Knight is tricky. It's difficult, especially if you don't have Lydia, Royal Guard, those big heavy damage dealers. Ninja, if you can fit him in the team, it's going to be better. But unfortunately, I don't think we can fit him in the team. We're not quite fast enough. But if someday we could fit, say, Ninja in the team, it's going to be a lot faster run. Right now, 2 minutes and 25 seconds, give or take, is a pretty solid run. So Allure, she's the only champion different. She's very, very important on her speed. If we can get more speed, it's going to be great. Crit rate needs to be at least 85%. I went ahead and went with 100% because if he uses her in any other areas, 100% is going to be the way to go. But since she's strong affinity, 85% is fine. Good accuracy, good speed, good crit rate. That's all you really need with Allure. If you can stack some crit damage, it could make the run go a little bit faster. Actually go ahead and throw some crit damage on there. So now she's at 141% crit damage. We have Giant Slayer. Don't need any books on Allure really whatsoever because her A1's really the only thing that matters, period. Her accuracy's fine. So let's go ahead and jump in here and see how this team plays out. Before we do that, let's look at the presets real quick. So Seer, round 1, round 2, and round 3. Archmage, round 1, round 2, round 3. Renegade, round 1, round 2, and round 3. We have Allure, round 1, round 2, and round 3. Tomb Lord, round 1, round 2, and round 3. Very, very important. Fire Knight, especially the round 2 and 3 presets, are very, very important because you got to make sure that the rotation is correct. Whether it's your Tomb Lord goes right before your Allure, setting her up to do the Terminator decrease of 2 of the 3 hits. Whatever it is, you got to make sure the champions are doing their abilities correct. Like with Renegade, make sure she's saving her A2 ability. Don't use it in the second wave. Use it on the Fire Knight because that's 2 hits, right? Her A2 ability does 2 hits. It's going to help break that Fire Knight shield as soon as possible. The sooner you break it, the better it's going to be. Let's see what Renegade's A2 ability actually says. Attacks at random 3 times. I take it back. It's a 3-hitter, not a 2-hitter. That's even better. So if you can, make sure you save that ability. There's no reason not to. Plus, it has a chance of placing that decreased speed. It's the weak version. But if any version whatsoever gets up, it's going to be much better than having none, right? Tomb Lord brings the big version of it, so it makes gearing for Allure a lot easier. Obviously, with this team, there's going to be some situations where we don't kill all the waves. I'm not really sure why we didn't just then. We should have. I'll have to recheck that. But the Fire Knight waves are pretty tanky. Fire Knight, I think, has the most tanky waves on stage 25, or one of the most. It's a pretty difficult one to get through. Royal Guard plus Lydia would definitely be an upgrade to this team. Have to adjust some things, but overall, be pretty solid. So you'll see here, once the Fire Knight shield gets broken, it's going to be pretty smooth, to be honest. Like, once we break the shield, Tomb Lord should be coming in with his A1 ability here, hopefully placing that decreased speed, the big version, and then from here on out, it's going to be just slow grinding the Fire Knight. So I'm just going to skip to the end of this Fire Knight kill. So 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Our best time was 2 minutes and 24 seconds. We're getting a little bit lag because of OBS, but it's going to be a consistent stage 25 team. It's not going to be the fastest speed run whatsoever, but it's going to be a pretty solid run in my opinion, and it's going to be something that he can leave on, let it run, and be good to go. So there we go. We have 3 dungeons, all 100% auto. Should be very, very consistent. The one I'm most worried about is Icegolem, but overall should be very good, especially when Archmage gets taken to 60. Masteries is going to be perfectly fine, I believe. So yeah, there we go, guys. Hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you all learned something, and I'll catch you all in the next video.